Nu är det dags för ett av de 3 bolag som idag presenterar på engelska. Det är ett USA-baserat medicinteknikbolag och de gör både skydd för proteser och de gör skräddarsydda 3D-printade korsetter för skolios. Så det här är ett väldigt speciellt bolag. Det heter UNYQ och det leds av en islänning som heter Ether Bender. Welcome up on stage, Ether.
Thank you. So, I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you, Vator, for inviting me. We are going to talk a little bit about something that is really exciting and is happening in front of us as we speak. It's called mass customization. And here you can see some of the pictures. The company that is leading the charge in this is UNYQ in the field of orthopedics and prosthetics. And that's kind of what I want to talk about here today. How that came about, I'm personally, like I said, originally from Iceland, but I've been living in 15 years in California and last 10 years in San Francisco. We're taking a couple of companies commercial and done that with a company like Össur that was out of Iceland, that pioneered really prosthetics and went actually public here back in 2005 on the Nasdaq Copenhagen market. And since then, the market cap has gone well up, and talk about that a little bit after. But I worked there with Manuel Bosa, who is an amputee. And he lives in Sevilla in Spain. And we had a very common vision in terms of how we could maybe introduce the next wave of innovation into this field of prosthetics and orthotics. And that was with 3D printing and mass customization. We had the luck of knowing very well Apple designer Scott Summit, and we teamed up with him. And 3D Systems that had actually acquired his company, and the rest is history. So we are a team that comes very much from the ecosystem of Össur, people from around the world. Like I said, my co-founder is in Spain, so we have a big operation in Spain. Probably about 70% of our revenues is very close to that comes from Europe, the rest from US and rest of the world. And the US person that leads the charts over there in North Carolina, where we also have an office, is Lisa Tori. She used to run for us all the orthopedic market for Össur, and so extremely experienced. And then we just set up a Stockholm office with Fredrik Meyer leading the charts, absolute authority in this field here in the Nordic market. And so we have a very good diverse team here that all, like you see, have experience from the same company, but also from different other companies. And the company today is 4 years old. So we are lucky enough to have plenty of other good individuals around us. We have a very strong board. The board is Exponential Partners, Ed Pope, major investor in UNYQ. Julie Hill, who is on the board of Anthem, and also Team B, which is Richard Branson and his team there. So we have then also Avi Reichenthal, who is he's a former board member and now an advisor to UNYQ. He is the former CEO of 3D Systems, the company I mentioned before, and is the largest 3D printing company in the world, and is a big investor in UNYQ as well. Then we have a couple of doctors, orthopedic surgeons, Dr. Ken Trauner, who is the major author behind most of our IP, Dr. Lohner from Mount Sinai, that is now also working on a research in the scoliosis phase for us together, big customer. And then Francis Bitonti, which is really this new wave of innovation in generative design that you use nowadays with AR capabilities to design things in a very efficient way. And I'll come to that a little bit after when we talk about our platform. We are very fortunate that these people have put their money where their mouth is, and they are investors in our company. So our directors and advisors, 20%. 3D Systems, a big investor. And then we have companies like venture firms, primarily in Silicon Valley. Some of them with a very strong health tech background have invested in UNYQ multiple times and continue to invest. And then a lot of very passionate angel investors that are also there with us. So yes, our focus is on medical wearables. It's a market potentially of 1 billion people around the world, people who live with physical disabilities. So it's not a small number. We are obviously focusing on a specific segment of that in the beginning. So all devices that are well reimbursed is kind of our focus. And the trend we are riding on is, like I said, the mass customization trend, which is for real, especially in the medical field. We have the medical market really leading the charts with 3D printing technology. The most probably famous company is Invisalign. There's probably no company in the world that ships as many 3D printed units, braces for children primarily, but also for adults nowadays. And they use 3D printing capabilities. And what's amazing about 3D printers is that they are not only just becoming more and more effective because it's all digitalized, but they are dropping in prices tremendously. 30% a year pretty much. We are seeing a drop in printers, and they're getting better and faster, 5 to 10 times faster. The printers, for instance, that Hewlett Packard introduced not a long time ago, and so on. These companies, they use retail experience to promote the products more and more, tapping into the fact that we are all becoming more and more CEOs of our own health. And so you see beautiful spaces where you can acquire these, but still it's, actually these are not reimbursed. You cost about $8,000 a pop, but those are reimbursed. Hearing aids, they went in 500 days, completely the whole industry over to 3D printing here about 10 years ago. And there's actually a Harvard Business case study on that that's very interesting to read. And what's fascinating about this also is that the imaging devices that you use to capture the images that you use then to 3D print, becoming cheaper and cheaper. And nowadays you can just even use apps to capture that. You don't even need expensive scanners. And the good thing is that those apps and those cameras are getting better every 6 months. So, but if you go into our industry, it looks a little bit more dull. And this is kind of a typical picture of how it looks like in an orthotic or prosthetic clinic where braces and prosthetics are used for people who oftentimes have to wear it for a lifetime. 3 years, 5 years, or even a few months. So this is how it's done. It's not pleasant both for the users, the outcome, and it's not a pleasant experience, I think, for the clinicians in the end. But that's pretty much how we have done it because it is customized. Every one of us is different. And so it's been really hard for us to come up with technologies and ways of doing things in a very customized ways until now. And the way we are doing it here at UNYQ, the platform we are deploying and have been developing over the last 4 years is that you capture first all the images. You can either do it with very cheap scanners that cost $500. That's what we use for scoliosis braces. Or you can use simple apps that are downloadable off the App Store and are free. And that's what we use for prosthetics. And then our designers take over. We have most of our designers sitting in Sevilla in Spain. And they take over and they work on the files. And I showed you earlier, Francis Bitonti and his team, they're working with us on making the design process faster and faster using AR. So every time a designer works with our files, we collect that information and we use it to optimize it, etc., going forward for future designs. And so that way, our design process has gone from a whole day, where it took us in the beginning to make one of our devices, over to now just a couple of, it's an hour or so that we are at the moment. We believe we can get it down to 10 minutes. And then it goes to the printers. And the great thing is, it's the same printers we use for braces as well as for prosthetics. It's the same platform. We don't need to create new toolings, no new way of manufacturing for every one of these. And then you move over to these beautiful products. A lot of smiles. And what happens also in this process is that we make the process more efficient. We are cutting out middlemen by doing this. So it becomes much more streamlined, less visits for the patient, and etc. And obviously less cost for the insurance companies. So the products that we introduced are primarily what we call medical wearables. It's prosthetics and orthopedics. The particular market we are focusing on, which is at least now, until now and this year, is scoliosis braces as well as prosthetic covers. This is about 2.6 billion SEK in addressable market. And if we show you a little bit insight into scoliosis, what we are talking about there, it's a terrible condition that leads to a curvature in the back. Hopefully you detect this within your kids if they have it, maybe when they are 9, 10 years old, and then you try to take them through a specific treatment. 2 to 3% of the population has this, so this is not a small population. We're talking about 36 million people by the year 2050. And if they need brace, then they have to wear the brace most likely. It's usually when it goes over 25 degrees. They have to wear the brace then for 18 hours a day, up to 3-4 years. And this is during their teenage years, where everything is very sensitive, of course. And if that doesn't work out, it leads to surgeries. And you see a couple of those pictures up there, and we put them always in black and white just to make sure, because it's just the worst surgeries you can imagine. Putting 2 rods in your back, 18 screws, and you live with that for the rest of your life. And you see pictures of that here on the right side. And many people obviously can't even afford it. It's very expensive treatments, cost $150,000 just in the US alone, each treatment. And there's a huge waiting list in many countries for it, like for instance in Ireland. So we introduced a completely new way, because obviously it's all about compliance. It's all about getting these kids to, okay, it's important that you wear your brace, but who wants to really wear a brace that looks so horrible? So we came out with a new way, 3D printed, and it's based on a study that was made that proved that the more you wear the brace, the more effective it is. And so it's scientifically tested. And we are rolling this out now since middle of last year into our pilot clinics. The second product line is prosthetic covers, which we started with about 4 years ago. There are 40 million people, amputees, in the world in 2050, over 20 million today. And they wear prosthetic legs, obviously for the rest of their life. And those prosthetic legs, I mean, we were part of that at Össur, at revolutionizing that. There is bionics around and so on, but obviously to both protect these bionic gears and make them more aesthetic and symmetrical, you wear prosthetic covers. And this is typically how those look like. People try to make them lifelike, but usually it's a little bit of a mistake, and it's used doing it with foam that is just manually grinded down. And but the good thing is, the good story is that these are actually reimbursed, 5,000 to 10,000 SEK, and here you see a little bit the split between above knee and below knee. We focus primarily on above and below knee, less on arms at this point. And these are our prosthetic covers. They are 3D printed and beautiful. And we have been shipping this, like I said, in the last 4 years around the world, 50 countries. And like I said, reimburses in most of those countries at these rates that I talked about here earlier. It's been wonderful to see that there's kind of a community building around this. We have seen people like Alex Minsky here on the picture in Fashion Week, first amputee ever to walk on Fashion Week in 2014 wearing our cover. He is a US veteran. Grace here from Santa Rosa in California with us at the White House, invited by Michelle Obama back 2 years ago, where we introduced this brace in a fashion show that was hosted at the White House. And then Dorothy here, who is wearing, this is actually her 4th cover. So she has a collection that she wears on a regular basis with her grandchildren or out biking. And so it's been really interesting to see how people go, we kind of call it to go from being a hider to becoming a seeker. And so it's a completely different picture than you saw maybe 5 to 10 years ago. And in terms of our sales and how we execute that, we obviously do a heavy emphasis is on social media and reaching out to the consumer. The great thing is you can do that nowadays. It's fairly easy to do, but we have been very effective at it with a relatively small sales force of 6 people that then focus more on training and taking care of the clinics that we work with, whether these are prosthetic clinics or orthopedic doctors that we work with. We onboard them, we give them materials, we give them demo covers or braces, and then we support them with after-sales service. We've been very blessed with our first clinics, our pilot clinics on the orthopedic side, our Stanford Children's Hospital, completely taken over our line. Mount Sinai, Children's Hospital of Atlanta, are a few of those. And then we have on the prosthetic side, the biggest company in the prosthetic field, the Enel from Italy. It's the largest prosthetic company in the world, also our development partner. Walter Reed is also a development partner. They are the #1 military hospital in the States, in Washington, Bethesda. And many others, leading clinics that are working with us here. Been very blessed with good partnerships. And in terms of the future, yes, we are a selling company. We have been selling pretty much out of the box. That was very important for us to also get that direct feedback, and that is the beauty of 3D printing. You can go relatively fast from concept to product. In 2017, we sold for about 6.6 million SEK. We are tripling that in 2018, and we had a very good first quarter, well over target. And in terms of next introductions, very excited here that next week we are introducing actually the world's first totally 3D printed prosthetic leg. And it's going to be at the trade show in Germany, where we are going. And so hopefully be able to show you that here next time. And then slowly but surely we are going to be continuing to introduce new products. We have a spine line that is based on the scoliosis brace that we already introduced. We are going to introduce that now in Q4. Lower back braces, upper back, front, pectus, etc. And the beauty of that is that we are going with that to absolutely the same clinics, to Stanford, to Mount Sinai, so we can use the same channel to build on. Then we move over to pain and instability, osteoarthritis braces, for example. Fracture braces will be the next one, and then to trauma. And why is it prioritized like this? It is prioritized this way because of the time of delivery. Right now we deliver within 3 weeks. It has to go down to 2 weeks, 1 week, and eventually you will see these printers sit in the hospitals, where we would just, to larger hospitals, we will be able to provide braces that you need instantly and become kind of like a system integrator with the hospitals. But that's the path we are taking towards that. And but I'm also excited to say that on my previous slide that I showed you about the board. There was one empty slot there. It's for our Swedish board member that just came on board, and we'll be announcing that individual in a month from now at a specific event here in Sweden. And it's part of a major collaboration that we are doing with a manufacturer here in Sweden about deploying our platform to help them to create mass customization in the retail sector. And so that announcement is soon to come. Couldn't talk about it here, unfortunately. Have to wait for that. And then also we are exploring the potential of listing the company on Nasdaq Stockholm. We did this before with Össur, and we had a very good experience with that. We were able to use the access to capital to acquire companies, for instance. We heard the story of one company here earlier that did that very effectively, and that is exactly how we did it at Össur. We acquired 13 companies after we listed on Nasdaq in Copenhagen, and out of that became Össur, and we grew really fast. We were not particularly smart as executives, but having that access to capital was really what separated us from the rest of the pack, I would say. And we grew faster than anybody else, and that was just the access to capital. So we had a very good experience with that, and we are very interested in what obviously is happening here with the Nasdaq market here. It's very attractive. We would be the first US company to do that, and so there are certain hurdles we have to work through, but we are looking into that. So that is pretty much unique, and like I said, in terms of as an investment, I think it's you're getting a company that is obviously on a specific trend. We are obviously on the forefront in our industry, and we are also have backed it up with a very good team, which I'm very proud of, that we have together here in a short time, and like I said, already showing good revenue growth. And so that said, I think I'm ready to take questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vator.